spent a moment talking about how important it is to narrow down your topic, and that's really what these first 8 steps is about. So, when you want to go about changing a behavior in health, and I would refer you back to chapter 1 where it talks about SMART goals and the stages of change, that you really want to have as much information about what is your specific issue or health problem or challenge, and what would be the best thing that you can try to take on. Now, I want to be really clear. This paper is going to be a project. This paper is the second part of a project which will be due on in early May, and May 13th is the date of the day that you will turn in your third part of the paper. So the idea will be, what can you do between March 10th and May 13th? This will be an 8-week project. So once you have an idea of what your topic is, you're going to break it down into smaller chunks. So you earlier you wrote a topic paper about what you wanted to focus on. Now, chunking, which is again a very scientific term, it's just basically breaking it down into smaller units. So let's say your topic is to eat healthier or exercise more, manage stress, but that's probably way too big. So you want to break it down into just a few chunks. Now, the best projects I've seen over the many years I've taught this class at City College is one that only addresses a couple of things. Like, let's say you want to improve the sleep that you get. So you want to say, I want to get into bed by 11 o'clock or midnight, and I want to get 7 hours of sleep a night. So that's a very specific, measurable piece, as opposed to, I want to get more sleep. So let's say you want to do that. So you're going to break your topic into smaller chunks. So what are the smaller chunks that you've broken your topic into? What does better eating look like for you? What does better sleep look like? What does more exercise look like? Now, importance and confidence, these should be familiar to you, because we talked about these earlier in the semester. If something's not important to you, and if you don't think you can do it, you're not going to be very successful. So when you look at your chunks, and remember you only want to have 2 or 3 main chunks by this time, you're going to want to make sure that these chunks are really important to you. Now, I wanted to say about your topic that you're not picking a topic that is necessarily going to be, something that would be very difficult to talk about with a stranger, that being me, your instructor, or B, something that is not something that could be observed. So, for instance, importance in this case would be, how important is it to you to eat more vegetables? And then, how confident are you that you can actually follow through with this? All right. So you're gonna, again, you're looking at your chunks. You're deciding what are the 2 or 3 most important ones, and personally, how important and how confident. Now, remember, at this stage, you're just making notes for your topic. You're just forming your outline. We haven't even gotten to writing the paper yet. Now we're going to get to the most scientifically interesting part of the process, called chunk science. I made that up. You're going to notice it says December 9th. The paper is actually due May 13th, December 19th. So once you've had your 2 or 3 or 4 chunks, I want you to look and talk about and review the scientific rationale or medical evidence base for why your chunk is important. So for instance, you might read somewhere that if you put a bowl of strawberries under a basket next to your bed, it will improve your sleep. But that obviously doesn't make any sense. So you would want to find out, is that actually true? So your step that you're taking with number 6 is you're beginning to research the chunks. Now this is where you're going to be going in. You're actually going to be finding out, well, how many hours of sleep should I get? How many servings of vegetables should I try to eat? This is also a great time for you to stop and think about not just something like how many servings of vegetables should I eat, but you might want to go as far as to say, I'm a disorganized person, or I don't like vegetables. How does someone who doesn't like vegetables actually get vegetables that they like to eat. So from this point, this is where you're beginning to really whittle down the process. And this gets to the heart of the project, the paper, where the whole point of this paper is to not just change your behavior, but to actually look at how you would go about forming the process by which you're going to change your behavior. So it's not just about trying to eat more healthy. It's about actually exploring a process that is tailor fit to you to be able to do just that, which is to eat more healthy. In the hypothesis, a lot of scholarly journals are actually based on hypotheses. Like if you're a college student and you're very busy, you might go to the literature that talks about college students and how they are able to eat in a more healthy way. So you want to borrow the hypothesis from nutritionists and health educators and so forth that have been studying college students and have published that material. This is where you go to expert opinion. These are some of the questions that you might take on to form your hypothesis, to go about figuring out which approach do you want to take to your research. So let's say that you want to eat in a more healthy way. So some of your hypothesis or questions that you might want to look into is should you go on a low-fat diet? Is no-carb diet, is that a credible approach? What about paleo? Everyone's talking about paleo or clean foods. Keto is another diet you're hearing about. What about is it more important to run every day to lose weight, or should you lift weights? Which is the better approach? That might be another thing you're looking at. How do you schedule your time? If you have a very limited amount of time, what's the best approach for someone who's pressed for time? What happens, and what do people what do the experts recommend that you should do if you have a relapse? That means that if you have everything perfectly laid out, what's the best way to get back on track? How realistic are your chunks? So for instance, you might have great ideas about how you're going to completely change your eating habits, but you go in and you start to do the research. You just start to read, and it says that the most successful people only made very small changes and then added to them a little bit. Is it belly that you need to try to lose, or your self-esteem that you need to nurture? Okay, now I see what that means. So are you trying to lose your belly, or are you just trying to improve your self-esteem? Each of them can be relatively difficult to do, but if what you're really trying to do is to feel better about yourself, you may boil down to the fact and say, you know what, losing weight's not going to help that. I just probably need to increase the number and times I say positive things to myself during the day. The number of times I say something positive to myself when I see myself in a mirror or something like that. Which one is the most important? Which one should you work on first? So the research is also going to help you to set your agenda for how you're going to go about getting started. Here's some information. Again, this is repeating some of the information about writing your paper. When you're done, when you've written your paper, and you have 2 weeks from this point, and some of you have already started working on it, I strongly encourage you to, if you're going to turn in 3 pages of a research paper, I strongly encourage you to write 12 pages draft. So that would mean that you wrote 12 pages of kind of top of the head, very unfinished material, and that by the time you went to turn it in, you had edited it down, you've pared it down so that you have 3 really good pages that you then upload to the Canvas. And what you're going to do is you're going to upload it to Canvas in Word format. Now I want to really clarify that that's 3 pages of essay writing. The 4th page will be your sources, and that must be presented as a works cited page, and it has to be in APA format. So I'm going to be posting this on the announcements part of our page. You'll have a chance to listen to this, and then please stop and ask me questions anytime. The paper's due March 10th, but you can take up until March 17th to complete it, and I encourage you to do that. If you turn it in late, you get about 10% points off, but it's better to do that than either not do it at all or do a really poor job, and we don't want you to do that. I want you to do your best work and continue to learn and have a great experience with this class this semester.